Ever dreamt of escaping to a tropical island? You know, like crystal clear water and lush greenery, the whole paradise thing?
Uh-huh.
Well, that's exactly what Yvonne Baldelli did.
Yeah.
Moved to Isla Carenero in Panama
Okay.
with her boyfriend, Brimager, a former Marine.
Interesting.
But this dream, it turned into a nightmare.
What happened? This case, it really shatters that picture-perfect image of paradise, you know?
Right.
Yvonne vanished in November 2011,
Oh, wow.
and her boyfriend. He returned to the U.S. alone,
Mm,
claimed she'd just run off with another man,
really?
but the truth, well, it's far more sinister.
So we've got a lot of sources for this deep dive. Court documents, news articles, even digital forensics reports.
Wow.
And it's all about unraveling this whole mystery, what really happened to Yvonne Baldelli.
To really understand this case, we need to go deeper, you know, beyond the surface.
Yeah.
Yvonne, in her early emails, she painted a picture of this happy island life.
Okay.
But there were warning signs already there,
Uh-huh.
lurking beneath.
Like what kinds of warning signs?
Well, witnesses later on, they revealed that they had seen bruises on Yvonne.
Oh, no.
And there were reports of arguments, heavy drinking. This wasn't the carefree escape she made it out to be.
That's where it gets really chilling. Thanksgiving 2011, that marks a turning point.
Yeah.
Yvonne's communication, it just stops.
Yeah.
No more emails, no more calls, nothing. And it's her sister, Michelle, who really starts digging for the truth. Brian's story about Yvonne just taking off with someone new to Costa Rica,
Yeah.
it just didn't add up for her.
And this is where the digital trail becomes super important. Remember, this was 2011.
Yeah.
Not everyone was as aware of their digital footprint as we are now.
Right.
But Michelle's cousin, he was pretty tech savvy. He discovered something shocking.
What's that?
Those emails, the ones supposedly from Yvonne in Costa Rica,
Yeah.
they were actually sent from Brian's home in California.
Whoa, talk about a plot twist.
I don't know, right?
So it wasn't just a gut feeling. Michelle had hard evidence that Brian was lying. That's when she goes to the FBI, armed with this digital smoking gun.
It's a great example of how technology, it can be a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
In this case, it helped Brian craft this whole false narrative, but then it also exposed his deception.
Right.
A simple IP address, that unique identifier for every device connected to the internet, it revealed the truth about where those emails were really sent from.
So while the FBI is getting involved in the U.S., on the ground in Panama, we have private investigator Don Winter joining the search.
Oh, wow.
This guy, he is known for cracking some really tough cases. And right from the start, he suspects foul play.
Interesting.
This search, though, it's not easy. They're dealing with these dense, swampy jungles.
Oh, man.
It's a far cry from that picture-perfect postcard image of a tropical island, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, back in the U.S., the FBI, they're building their case. And they find some really disturbing searches on Yvonne's laptop.
What kind of searches?
Things like how to remove blood from a mattress. Not exactly what you'd expect from someone planning a romantic getaway.
No.
And then it gets worse. They uncover security footage showing Brian using Yvonne's bank account in Costa Rica.
Wait, but she was supposedly off with this other man.
Exactly. The web of lies is starting to unravel pretty quickly.
And then there's this chilling discovery on Yvonne's laptop. A selfie showing her with a massive black eye,
Oh my God.
taken just weeks before she disappeared. A silent cry for help, you know, just captured in a single image.
It's heartbreaking to see how the facade just crumbles, revealing the potential danger Yvonne was in.
Yeah.
But at this point, she's still missing. Almost 2 years pass, and then a worker in Panama, he stumbles upon a duffel bag. It contains skeletal remains.
Oh, no.
The truth is even more horrific than anyone could have imagined.
I can't even imagine. So, were the remains identified?
The remains are positively identified as Yvonne's, and the details, they're grim. She had been dismembered.
Dismembered.
Remember that machete Brian brought to Panama?
Yeah.
Investigators found traces of Yvonne's blood under the handle, despite attempts to clean it.
So, this isn't a simple disappearance anymore. This is murder.
Exactly. This discovery, it's the turning point. Brian is arrested and charged. But even with all this evidence, the digital trail, the physical evidence, the witness testimonies, he continues to deny any involvement in Yvonne's death.
Wow. How could he possibly maintain that innocence with all this evidence piling up? It's almost unthinkable how he could maintain this facade of innocence, you know, with all this evidence stacked against him. Part of it, I think, might be that the classic abuser's playbook.
Yeah.
Manipulation, deflection, that kind of thing. And maybe even like a distorted reality where he believes he's the victim.
So he's not just denying the crime. You're saying he's potentially crafting this whole new narrative in his own head.
Exactly, yeah. Abusers often have narcissistic tendencies, a lack of empathy, a need for control, that sort of thing, an inability to actually take responsibility for their actions. So in Brian's mind, it's possible he truly believed he was justified in his actions.
Or even that Yvonne was somehow to blame.
Yeah, exactly. It's a scary thought.
And we got to go back to Yvonne for a second.
Okay.
Why didn't she just leave sooner? I mean, we've seen the warning signs, the bruises, the arguments, the isolation on that island.
It's a question that haunts so many cases of domestic violence. It's rarely easy. Leaving an abusive relationship, it's not straightforward. Yvonne might have, she might have been clinging to hope that things would change, that the Brian she fell in love with was still somewhere there beneath the anger and the control.
And don't forget, they were on a remote island. That isolation, while initially appealing for that fresh start, it could have trapped her in a dangerous situation.
Absolutely. It's much harder to reach out for help or confide in someone, friends or family, when you're physically isolated like that.
Right, right.
That sense of being cut off from your support system, it can be, well, incredibly debilitating. And then you can't underestimate the power imbalance. Brian was a former Marine, physically stronger, and it's likely he used that, to intimidate Yvonne, to control her. She might have felt powerless to even challenge him, fearing what would happen if she spoke out.
It's like that tropical paradise. It almost becomes a cage, both physically and mentally.
Yeah.
But there's another layer to this.
Okay.
Brian's military background.
Right.
Could his time in the service could that have contributed to his actions?
That's a tough question. And we have to be careful here.
Yeah, of course.
We're not saying that all veterans are prone to violence.
Right.
But trauma, it can manifest itself in very unpredictable ways.
Okay.
It's possible Brian was dealing with, I don't know, PTSD maybe, or other psychological scars from his time in the Marines.
So we're not excusing his behavior, but we're trying to understand all the factors that might have been at play here.
Exactly. Trauma doesn't justify violence, but it can help explain maybe the distorted thinking, the anger, that need for control that we see in abusers. It's a piece of the puzzle, not the whole picture.
This reminds me of those witnesses that came forward.
Right.
The ones who said they'd seen those bruises on Yvonne.
Yeah.
What do you think motivated them to speak up?
It's interesting, isn't it? They might not have known the full extent of the danger that she was in, but something made them share what they saw. Maybe a sense of unease, a feeling that something just wasn't right.
Maybe it was just that human instinct.
Yeah.
To protect others, even strangers, from harm.
Yeah.
But their testimonies, however small they might have seemed at the time, they were crucial in building the case against Brian.
Absolutely. Those little details, like a bruise, an argument overheard, they can become powerful pieces of evidence when you put them all together. And in this case, they corroborated that digital trail and the physical evidence on the machete.
Speaking of the digital trail, it's still just, I don't know, it's crazy to me how Brian used Yvonne's computer to search those things. How to remove blood from a mattress.
Yeah.
And to access her bank account.
Right.
It just seems so calculated.
Yeah, it speaks to that desire to just erase her.
Wow.
To eliminate any trace of her. Not only did he take her life, he attempted to destroy, to obliterate her financially and digitally.
But as we've seen, technology, it can also be a tool for justice.
Right.
Those internet searches, those emails sent from his IP address, it all became evidence, key evidence. That ultimately helped dismantle that facade he had so carefully constructed.
It's a good reminder that in this digital age, we're leaving traces of ourselves everywhere we go.
Yeah.
And those traces, well, they can be used to expose the truth, no matter how hard someone tries to hide it.
So we have Brian, this former Marine, potentially struggling with maybe some trauma. He's manipulating Yvonne. He's isolating her on this island. We have physical evidence, witness testimonies, this damning digital trail, and yet he still maintained his innocence. How did he pull that off?
Well, part of it might be compartmentalization.
Compartmentalization.
Yeah, it's a psychological defense mechanism. Allows people to separate conflicting beliefs or actions. Brian might have convinced himself that he was justified, that this wasn't really his fault.
That's a disturbing thought. Is it possible that he was just in denial, unable to actually face the reality of what he had done?
Denial is a powerful force, especially in cases that involve extreme violence. It allows the person to protect their sense of self, to maintain that feeling of normalcy, while grappling with this unthinkable act.
And let's not forget the people around Brian. They might have been in denial too, refusing to believe that someone they knew was capable of something so horrific.
It's a natural human response. We want to believe the best in people, especially those we care about. But sometimes that, wanting everything to be normal, it blinds us to the truth, making us complicit in the deception.
So we've got this complex interplay of manipulation, denial, self-deception, all playing out against the backdrop of this seemingly idyllic island.
Yeah.
It's a chilling reminder that even paradise can have dark secrets. But what about Yvonne's family? How did they cope with this unimaginable loss? I mean, while also fighting for justice, I don't know, it's hard to imagine the pain Yvonne's family must have gone through, not just losing her, but the torment of not knowing, of having to fight for those answers, for justice.
Yvonne's sister Michelle, she becomes like this central figure. She just refused to accept Brian's lies, you know? She challenged the authorities, campaigned tirelessly for her sister's case to be taken seriously, all while battling cancer herself.
Wow. Talk about strength and determination in the face of just, I don't know, unimaginable hardship.
Yeah.
What was it like for Michelle to take on that role, not just as a grieving sister, but as a key witness in the trial?
Michelle's testimony, it was powerful and heartbreaking. You know, she spoke about Yvonne, the Yvonne that she knew. Vibrant, loving, adventurous, and how those emails from Yvonne in Costa Rica, they just didn't sound like her. Imagine having to relive that loss, to confront your sister's killer, all while going through cancer treatment.
It's a testament to that bond between siblings, the love that it compels you to fight for someone, even when they're gone. And in the end, it was Michelle's persistence combined with, the work of investigators and that digital trail Brian left that led to his conviction.
Right.
So what happened?
So in 2016, Brian, facing all that evidence, he finally pleads guilty to second-degree murder. And he was sentenced to 26 years.
Wow.
It wasn't the full justice that Yvonne's family wanted, but it was still a victory, a recognition that her life mattered, that her voice, well, it wouldn't be silenced.
And Yvonne's remains were laid to rest at sea. A fitting tribute to someone who, loved the ocean so much. But this case, it leaves us with so many questions. What are those red flags that we should be looking for in our own relationships? How can we better support victims of domestic violence?
It's a conversation we need to be having, not just in our personal lives, but as a society. We need to challenge those, the myths and misconceptions around domestic abuse, create a culture where victims actually feel safe to come forward and ask for help.
And what about technology's role in all of this? I mean, we've seen how it can be a tool for both deception and justice. How do we navigate this digital landscape, balancing privacy with the need to hold people accountable?
It's a tough balance, for sure. We need to be aware of our own digital footprints, understand how our activity online can be used.
Yeah.
And we need to advocate for, responsible use of technology in investigations.
The case of Yvonne Baldelli, it's a reminder that paradise can be a dangerous illusion. It's a story about the complexities of human relationships, the dark side of human nature, and those devastating consequences of unchecked power and control.
Yeah. But it's also a story about resilience, about the power of family, and that unwavering pursuit of justice. Yvonne's voice might be gone, but her story, it continues to resonate. It urges us to be more aware, more compassionate, and more vigilant in this fight against domestic violence.
And to you listening, we hope that this deep dive has, maybe prompted some reflection. What resonated most with you about Yvonne's story? What lessons can we learn from this tragedy? We encourage you to, keep exploring these questions, to have those tough conversations about domestic violence, and to be a voice for those who have been silenced.